strokes. Yeah, basically indicating the difference in length. Now here, for example, if we look at this one, but the problem is that it's not truly so. It's actually one of those major achievements, I think, which made possible the reconstruction of the Tangut language by Nishida. So because he understood, and that's really is a brilliant person, yeah, is that in fact that this is a word. And when we say, and together these two words, yeah, they mean today. Kirill. So that is that if a small character is to the right, the reading goes like this. You read this one and then one first, but they're still homonymous. Now, if the character is to the left, the reading goes like this. Yeah, and it's again it's a word. Yeah, but the problem of Tangut morphology in many ways is that the words which constitute the parts, yeah, or the syllables which constitute the word are in many cases homonymous. Yeah. Therefore, that kind of reading is actually legitimate, and we can really say that those characters, they do explain each other. Yeah? And another thing is this one over here. It's also a very, very important one. It is called Yin Cheyu, yeah? The rhyme dictionary Cheyu principle according to the 5 sounds. Yeah? What is really important here is the preface to it. And I personally find it of utmost importance because it not only tells us about the actual rhymes, but about how Tanguts understood their own literature and thought. It's right here. Yeah, you can see, so I put it here in the first place. I mean, it still has a little bit problematic, but it basically features or mentions the genres of the Tangut literature. This collection of rhymes is the source from which emerge the collection of the sutras of the primordial Buddha, the rituals of the kings, the commandments and instructions, the poems of the scholars, the pure and muddy. It's also a very interesting thing, what is pure and muddy. Pairs of yin and yang, good and evil, season records, Taoism, the art of healing, divination calendars, songs and treatises, and other works of Wen. Yeah. And if we look through the Tangut collection, not only in St. Petersburg, but also elsewhere, we can see that all those things, all those genres or works of literature, which are mentioned here in this particular preface, they are all found, either in Chinese, but mostly in Tangut, yeah, throughout. So there is a real uniformity here, yeah. We can actually see how the culture and how the literature was in fact created, yeah. Basically, everything is here. So the first achievement on the Tangut studies based on those things, yeah, was this, as you can see, one of those first observations to which the scholars came was and one of the first tasks, yeah, which the people were engaged in was the reconstruction of the Tangut phonetics. So as we can see, we have this traditional system here, yeah, of Bambamimian, yeah. So if we can see all the 5 sounds here, yeah, the Tangut labial, approximants, alveodental, palatal, velar, alveolar fricatives, dentals, affricates, glottals, and glides, yeah. So it's all here. Here we have the Chinese, and here is Tangut and the reconstruction. That's pretty much done by originally by Nevsky, and then followed by Hashimoto Mantaro, Nishida, and others, and Sofronov as well. So that, I guess, the consonance is pretty clear. And this was all done actually very fast, because the Tanguts provided modern scholarship with such a variety of phonological materials that is actually very easy to do. I mean, much easier than, let's say, what Cargren did. And basically, as one can see, what comes in the end, yeah, is actually Cargren's system, although simplified, of course. But there are still debates on a variety of aspects, but I say here, I put it since this lecture is taking place in the United States, so one has to mention this one, of course. Bertolt Laufer, I'm sure does it in the introduction. Bertolt Laufer? Yeah, of course.
You could introduce him. We got some people here who don't.
Bertolt Laufer, I mean, I can't introduce him enough. That was, I think, unfortunately, I never had a chance to meet him personally. But I think among the historical linguists and the people who did linguistics and history and everything, I guess, at that time, I can hardly imagine anyone who was more brilliant than him. A really outstanding person. And what he did was actually, of course, they had ideas back then, yeah. For example, in the Chinese philology, yeah, or phonology, this idea is, but it was popular at that time. But nonetheless, what he did is that basing on this pearl at hand on Zanzunzu, yeah, which was quite badly, I must say, edited by Professor Ivanov, whom we saw originally, who was still able to come up with basic reconstruction of the Tangut phonetics. He was the one who established quite firmly in 1916, was more than 100 years ago, the position of Tangut language within Tibeto-Burmese family, and his many of his conclusions, they still stand. Yeah, so he's, I would say, a really brilliant scholar. And so, in many cases, the further development of the Tangut studies was, in many cases, at least before Nevsky, yeah? But Nevsky's conclusions are very much dependent on Laufer as well, yeah? Basically determined the direction of the Tangut studies, specifically in the realm of philology, but realm of linguistics. But, I mean, we can discuss those later if I still have time. Other things which were discovered. Again, here we come down to those, I call those things, I think, in my handout, encyclopedic compositions. But there is really a problem of how to determine the nature of these things, yeah, because those are still textbooks, something which people really had to study to memorize. Now, the most important of these, as far as I can tell, is the so-called Sea of Meanings established by the saints. I think I have it here somewhere on page 3. Yeah, this is the Vajrapada, the Jinganju, yeah, the padas for the introducing verse. From here I have the picture of that. That's how the text actually looks like. Yeah, I have a suspicion that the Sanli Ihai, the Sea of Meanings established by the saints, that this particular text has a certain relationship with a composition which was mentioned once in the chapter on Xixia, on Tanguts, in the Song history. Because according to the Xiaguozhuan, to the entry on Xixia, there were two books from which the Chinese, or the Song government, acquired knowledge about Tanguts. One was called Xixia Xu, the things which are important to know about Xixia. And another one was called Qiang Arya, the Tangut Arya, the dictionary. Now, my understanding, although that's totally guesswork, is that this Sea of Meanings established by the saints is a collection of knowledge on the Tangut Empire. Myths, the origin of the Tangut people, the geographical settings of the Tangut Empire, mountains, rivers, cities, Buddhist faith, Taoist faith, shamanism, art of healing, whatever, the clothing. The only problem is that less than half of that has survived, unfortunately. Yeah, but nonetheless, still it gives us a fairly good impression of how Tanguts really understood themselves. Yeah, so this is something, and it's of course is completely permitted with both with Buddhist ideas and partially with the Confucian. Yeah, so but we will probably have another opportunity to talk about it. Okay, what comes next, and what is again was discovered? Yeah, also is the collection or collections which were put together also by Tanguts again for educational purposes. Now this one here is the so-called collection on virtuous behavior. It has a long preface and very important one, and I think parts of that I have it here on the page 9. The preface to the Xinji, yeah, or Zhen Xinji, which is sometimes called. It is dated, yeah, probably 90s of the 12th century. Shortly after Renzong, the Tangut emperor, has passed away, his son Chunyo was enthroned, and this is basically a collection or selections from the Chinese classical texts, but prepared in a very specific way. Yeah? Its preface basically allows us another glimpse on how Tanguts looked at themselves. Now the problem is here, the famous sentence is here, yeah? The great state of White and High, yeah, which is the actual name of the Tangut state, yeah? It controls or has the western land for already 200 years, and ever since that time, our ancestral temples and our altars of grain, they stand firmly, yeah? And there is no one in the four corners who does not respect the power and might of our Tangut state. Yeah, so here is what it says. Another thing, and this is probably something which is really most important for understanding of Tanguts themselves, is the Tangut poetry. If you look on pages 7 and 8, yeah, actually 6, yeah, I have a specific entry here called Tangut poetry. Tangut poetry consists, well, probably at least the ones we know, consists of two genres. One is the so-called odes, and the other one is called songs. Here another problem occurs. Now what is this problem? The problem is that when the scholars first saw Tangut poetry, they first saw the odes. The odes are very nicely published. They are xylographed, so the character, and published by the official printing house of Xixia, because there was a specific government body which was responsible for the Tangut printing. Was very beautiful. Very, very nice. And now, but the problem is that armed with their newly obtained knowledge on the Tangut grammar, the scholars started translating it and eventually thought that this is how all those Tangut secrets will be revealed. Now, what happened is that the scholars found out that there is no way of making sense out of those. They just do not translate properly. Now, what's this thing? There was a great deal of discussions concerning the so-called Tangut Odic poetry or the Tangut epic poetry, otherwise it's called. Now the problem is here, I think, probably use a moment. The Tangut word for ode is zo. Now the Tangut word for, yeah, it's simplified. So, the Tangut word for ritual is also no. So one of our Tangut scholars, Professor Kepping, Schwann suggested that the full anonymity, yeah, but because even the tones are the same, yeah, because Tangut was a tonal language. Even the tones are, sorry. See? Okay, so even the tones are similar. Now the problem is that in all probability, this coincidence, so this is not a coincidence, which led her suggesting that there is something which can be identified as the so-called Tangut ritual language. Something which was used specifically on ritual occasions and probably was not understandable, was not available to common people. This was basically a very start of the discussion, because now we generally believe that we are not talking about the ritual language, or even understanding that thing in terms of social linguistics would probably be not correct. What we are really looking at, probably at least one of my colleagues, Yahuinki, thinks so, and I guess that's actually true, that we are actually dealing with two different languages. Although those can be